Alright. Welcome back mga kachimek for another session with Sir Jello. And for this session, we are going to name acids. So this is our objectives for today. First, we are going to define acids. Second, identify the rules in naming acids. And the last one would be able to apply what you have learned through some practice problems. So if you can recall last time, where I talked about naming ionic compounds with simple metals and nonmetals, with transition metals, and with polyatomic ions. And we also tackled naming and writing chemical formulas for ionic compounds. So for this session, mga kachimek, we are going to name some acids. So let's get it on! Alright, here we go. Without further ado, let's begin. Before we cite the rules of in naming acid, what is an acid? Or what are acids? So according to the chemistry book, it's a chemical substance that neutralizes alkalis. It dissolves, acids dissolve some metals, and for sure you are familiar with that one, acid dissolving metals. Turns litmus paper to red. It's typically a corrosive or sour tasting liquid of this kind, but it's not advisable to taste some of the acids. But more importantly, I want to highlight the second definition on the bullet, or the second bullet. It's a compound where a hydrogen, a positive ion, is bounded to an ion, a negative ion, either a simple anion, meaning an ion which is an element being ionized, a non-metal being ionized, or a polyatomic anion. So I want to highlight that one, an H plus and an anion. Sige, how do we name acids? What's the difference of naming acid into ionic and covalent compounds? Well, we have three very simple rules in naming acids. First, we identify and separate the negative ion involved. And we check if our anion has an oxygen in it or does not have an oxygen in it. Now, let me reiterate that. We would like to identify, ang highlight natin is to look for the second element or the second group of elements or the negative ion, because we already know that our first element is our hydrogen, our H plus. So we would just like to separate the two to identify if there is an oxygen or there is no oxygen. Even not separating them, just by looking at them, you can already distinguish if there is or there is none. Why is that so? Because the oxygen affects the rule in naming them. So let's have an example. Now, if there is an ion without oxygen, the anion present or the non-metal present doesn't have an oxygen, we simply drop the IDE and change it with this formula: hydro plus the root name of the element, and then we add ic and acid. So let me reiterate that: hydro plus the root name of the element. It's an element. I forgot to write the letter E. Element, and then ic plus acid. So this will be our formula: hydro, the root name of the element, and then ic, acid. Halimbawa, si Sir Jello becomes an acid. So that would be hydrojelloic acid. Char lang. Now let's get into a more detailed example, or more accurate one. So some examples, datakpan yan. Examples, charan. So we have HCl and HBr and HF. And the first thing to do is to separate them. We have H plus, that's our hydrogen, and then we have our Cl, and the charge is negative because it's in group 7, if you can still remember. And I can without even looking at the table, naming acids is very easy because my hydrogen will always a positive 1 charge. So ang dali niya tandaan, malalaman ko lang yung charge nito depende sa subscript ng hydrogen. So since there's no subscript in my hydrogen, I'll assume that the charge of my chlorine is 1, through the crisscross method or through balancing them. Same with my bromine, HBr. So this is H plus. My bromine is Br minus. Alright? And then last one is my fluorine, hydrogen, and then my fluorine, which is H negative. Now, I will take a look at my second groups, or second group, my anion in particular. So the rule says if there is no oxygen in my anion, I will simply follow this formula. Hydro plus the root name of the element and then ic acid. I drop the IDE. So that becomes hydroblanc-ic acid. So here, supposedly, now we have learned in covalent compounds or even in ionic that this becomes hydrogen chloride, diba? Seemingly correct. However, this is an acid now. So instead of saying hydrogen chloride, I will drop the IDE and then I will follow the formula by writing hydrochloric hydrochloric acid. Sounds familiar? Our parents uses this to clean, especially our bowl, our CR, our tiles. My grandparents would often use the term muriatic acid. Don't touch that. That's very dangerous. That will, sabi na takot ako, it will tear down my skin. So that is your hydrochloric acid. Layman's term, we call it muriatic acid. That's very strong acid. So this is how you name an acid without an oxygen. So similarly, this one, instead of saying hydrogen bromide, since it's an acid, it becomes very good. Hydro, the formula, and then the root word or root name for bromine, without the IDE, is brom. Diba? We remove the IDE. So this becomes hydrobrome. I put an underline to so that you can see the formula. And then I add ic, and then I'll place acid. So never mind this one. There you have it, the hydrobromic acid. And lastly, how about my hydrogen fluoride? So this will becomes hydro hydrofluoric ang hirap magsulat. Forgive me. Hydrofluoric acid. Sige, I think it's an internet problem. So let me check my internet for a bit. So there you have it, your hydrofluoric acid. So I'm sorry for the writing. So hydrofluoric acid is an acid used in Teflon tape, if you're familiar with that one. It's also an ingredient for an antidepressant pill. It's Sozac, sounds like that, if I can still remember it correctly. But nonetheless, again, I'm just saying this because these are relevant things. These are not just random chemical formula that could not be used in our daily life. So we often encounter them without noticing. So this is your acids without oxygen. Let me reiterate. We follow the formula hydro, root name, without the IDE, add ic and acid for an ion without oxygen. So that's the first rule. The second rule, for may answer pala dito. So ako yung gumawa ng PowerPoint. Nas surprised ako, diba? Is a prank. So the second rule in naming acids is for acids, of course, with oxygen. So ano yung mangyayari if there's an oxygen? So this is a bit tricky now, because usually our acids with oxygen involves anions that are polyatomic. So if you can still remember our polyatomic ions, these are our ions clumped together, no? Parang yung almost compounds na tinatawag, but they are charged. So hydrogen oftentimes combines with this polyatomic ions, making the naming acids a bit just a little, no? A little complicated. But the rule is very simple as well. We still drop the ATE or the ITE and change it with either IC or OUS. And if you notice, we don't write the hydro anymore. So this is the difference if there's an oxygen. Now we oftentimes call them oxoacids. So C8 becomes IC. So that will become blank ic acid without the hydro. ITE with OUS or OUS acid, again without the hydro. Now I can talk all day, but this will be appreciated if we'll give some more examples. So let's try this one. No, HNO3, H2CO3, HNO2, HCrO2. So again, it would be very difficult, but since it's an online class, tadaan, magic, we will be given a list of polyatomic ions so that you will simply look at them. So hydrogen, the charge here, the subscript here is 1. So I'll assume that my NO3, so lagay natin dito, NO3 has a negative 1 charge because my hydrogen is positive. Hopefully, you'll understand it by now that I can get the charge of this one by looking at the subscript. So let's do that to all the elements here involved here, or all polyatomic ions in particular. H plus, but since you have 2, so that is your 2 hydrogen, no, to indicate, I place it as a coefficient. So my CO3 should have 2 negative charge so that they will balance. Hydrogen 1, so this is just NO2 negative, H plus. Again, I'm just separating, don't be confused. I'm just separating the 2 ions involved. So CrO2, and the charge is negative. So all non-metals, no, all anions have oxygens in them. So I cannot use the hydro blank ic acid formula, but rather I can use either ic acid or OUS acid. So I need to identify what are these particular polyatomic ions. So NO3 negative, let me take a look. I'm looking at either a nitrate or a nitrite. So medyo madali if I'm familiar with the symbols. Where are you? So here, if it's NO3 negative, it says here it's a nitrate. So nitrate. And the rule says if it's a nitrate, I will use ic acid. So this one is an 8, so I will change 8 and I will make it ic. So instead of saying nitrate, I will just say nitric acid. Again, I will not write hydro anymore because the formula says change ATE to ic. Very simple, right? Very easy. So let's take a look at the second example. CO32 negative. So CO32 negative. Where art thou? So here we have your carbonate. Gotcha. So 8, again, we go back to the rule. If it's 8, we use ic. So this will become, instead of saying carbonate, it becomes carbonic acid. Alright, carbonic acid. And then I have my NO2 negative. So NO2 is my nitrite. So NO3 negative is my nitrate. So NO2 negative is my nitrite. Diba? Pag bagsak ka sa quiz, nitrite, char lang. Ang matalino yun. So, nitrite. So, according to the rule, if it ends with ITE, I will use OUS acid. So, the difference will now be instead of nitrate, instead of nitric, my nitrite would be what do you think? Very good. It will become nitrous acid. Madali mahirap. Diba, it's easy as long as you know the rule and you have the cheat sheet, no? The polyatomic ion. And lastly, I have the CrO2 negative. So where art thou? So you just simply need to look and you shall find. I think it's a chromate. Yeah. CrO4. Sorry, I forgot. CrO4. Alright. Mali ang aking example. So, my bad. Let me take a look if there are still chromate here. CrO2. Oh, I think, yeah, there's no CrO2. It's CrO4 here, and the charge is 2 negative. So, this one is wrong. So, my bad. CrO4 is wrong. 2 negative. Therefore, my hydrogen should have 2 positive. So, let me write that again so that you'll not be confused. This is the correct formula for my acid. CrO4 for my chromate. Because when I separate them, this becomes 2 hydrogen, and the charge of my CrO4, it looks like a T, CrO4 is 2 negative to balance out. 2 negative. Alright, that is my chromate. My chromate, diba? Pag ayaw mo mag-isa sa dorm, maghanap ka ng kasama para may chromate ka. Charlotte. So, if it's 8, again, we use ic. So, this becomes chromic acid. No. And I think these acids, no, are important to health. I'm not sure, but I think nitric and carbonic acid are for vitamins. But I'm not sure. Again, you can just take a look at it. But nonetheless, these are relevant. Now, these are relevant acids. These are important acids in our daily life. Alright, so that is our rule. Actually, we just have 2 rules. If it's a if it's an ion without an oxygen, we just use the formula hydroblanchic acid. If it's an acid involving polyatomic ion, no, meaning there's an oxygen, it's an oxo acid, our 8 becomes ic, our 8 become us, no, or OUS. So there's a mnemonics by Sir Tyler DeWitt, no, a YouTuber that I was really amazed, no, and I changed it a little bit. So sabi dito is my ride has hydraulics, no, though the hydraulics is misspelled. If it ends in IDE, I use the formula hydro plus ic and then acid. If it's 8, no, I use ic. No, my ate is picky. And if it's ITE, I use OUS. So just remember these 3 sentences, and there you have it. You get the rule of naming acids. My ride has hydraulics. My ate is picky. Sprite is delicious. So let's try. Now, if you learned it, no. But before that, there's an exception. No, I'll remove my face there. Why is that there's an exception? Very simple lang. You can try answering this one, and you will either get phosphoric acid or phosphorus acid if you follow the rule strictly. No, phosphoric acid or phosphorus acid. Same here on the second 2. You'll get either sulfic acid or sulfus acid. And what do you think is wrong there? No, it sounds awkward. So, of all the acids, ito lang naman ang dalawang exemption. These 2 are the only exceptions. Now, when we talk about polyatomic ions involving, or even normal ions involving phosphorus and sulfur, we don't drop the UR, no, because it becomes sulfide, right? No, we return back their complete element name. No, so instead of saying phosphorus acid or phosphic acid, we say phosphorus acid or phosphoric acid. Same with sulfur. Instead of saying sulfus acid or sulfic acid, we say sulfurous acid or sulfuric acid. Hopefully you get that. Now, I don't know what the UPAC is thinking, but again, don't spell it or pronounce it backward. But that is the rule established by the UPAC. Now, so let's have an exercise. Sorry lang. Baduy na to. Ulit-ulit na. So, try answering this one. And then please pause the video. Alright, hopefully you've paused the video and answered it. Because the answers are this one. Now, we have the hydroiodic acid, perbromic acid, arsenous acid, and phosphorus acid. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, how to name acids. And if you have question, again, comment down below. Hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And then, ayan, see you again on our next episode. Maraming salamat mga kachimik. Have a great day. This is Sir Jello. Peace out.